share the link. Remember, we are on YouTube and also Facebook. We are live. And you can share this link to anyone who you feel may actually need this particular episode. I believe that there's so many people out there who really need a lot of information so that they can just know how best to give care to those who need their utmost support. And you can also send in your questions. I know their concerns may be many through our WhatsApp number, which is 0708 222 323 0708 222 323. And just before we begin, I just want to let you know about our FOH campaign that we are currently having. I mean, the most important thing is to make sure that we're reaching more people with a message of hope, and also with topics like this, you know, especially this show on Health Check. It's so many issues. We tackle so many issues, and many people are getting freed. Many people are getting information that they didn't have prior. So you can definitely be part of this movement, this campaign that we are having, so that more people will be reached, and so that we'll be able to expand our territory, even when it comes to how many people we are reaching with the message of hope, as well as getting these amazing topics to them. So you can send in your contributions on with our account number, and also let me share the pay bill number first, which is 933933. The account number is FOH Hope TV. So you can be part of it. Na ukiwa part of it, tunasema wewe ni rafiki mso. So you can send in your donation of 100 shillings or more to that pay bill number. Let me just say it once again. Paybill number 933933, account FOH Hope TV. So my name is Beatrice Watare. Let's get down to it. Habari zenu. Yeah, your colors are actually matching. It's like a purple, another shade of purple.
Yes, purple is a color for dementia and Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow. No wonder. You guys didn't tell me. You should have told me. I would have, slayed it up with some purple as well. Would be purple rain over here.
You're welcome. Yes.
But you're very much welcome. Really glad to have you. Our chit chat was amazing. Opened my eyes to a lot. But I know that the viewers at home will get even more of what we are going to be giving them. So maybe we can do a brief introduction. We can start from Karimi.
Yes, Karimi Njagi. I am an actor. I've acted in series Kina, Crime and Justice, Mpakani, and also a movie called Shimoni.
Wow.
And I'm also a farmer.
Oh.
Yes, I grow mushrooms.
Okay, those are very two distinct.
Yes. Yeah, but today I'm wearing a totally different hat, which is a hat of an Alzheimer's and dementia soldier.
Oh, right.
So I raise awareness on these conditions, because when we went through it, yes, thank God that we had the Alzheimer's and Dementia Organization of Kenya to literally hold our hands through it. But there are those people who may not know where to get their help from.
Sure. Yes. And today we'll be getting down to it with you sharing an experience that you went through. And I know our viewers at home will be really glad to hear it. Let's go to Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Elizabeth Mutunga. I'm the CEO and founder of the Alzheimer's and Dementia Organization Kenya, ADOC, an organization that started out of the need to create awareness and also to help other families not struggle to understand what the disease is. It took us 15 years to get a diagnosis and to understand what Dad was going through. So for me, I was like, that is a very long time to just not to be in a state of limbo. So what we do is just create awareness, support caregivers so that they're able to, of course, the journey never gets easier, but at least they have a helping hand to walk with them through this journey. I'm a counseling psychologist by profession and a HR practitioner, and now I'm doing a master's in dementia.
Oh, yes. Wow. Then I think I should just throw the first question to you. This will be more of a revision and what not.
What you're learning.
But anyway, maybe you can open our eyes and our ears to understanding what is dementia and also the Alzheimer's disease, and how are the two correlated?
Okay, so dementia is an umbrella term that used to explain or to understand the changes in personality, in behavior, memory, a lot of changes that are happening in the brain. So Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia. So there are many types of dementia, and I've said Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. There are other types of dementia like frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, dementia due to HIV-related condition, dementia due to alcohol-related condition. So there are very many types of dementia. Parkinsonism is also a type of dementia. So what to remember is that dementia is the umbrella term, and Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia. So dementia, Alzheimer's is a progressive degenerative condition, which when it starts, it does not stop. So that means it keeps getting worse as it progresses. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe this would be a good moment to even hear from Karimi on your experience, because you mentioned earlier on that you had to take care of your late father who had dementia. So how was that? How was the experience, and how was even the diagnosis of you finding out?
Okay. We started noticing a few odd things about my dad. It was about, really, when we think about it, probably 2010, 2011, thereabouts, where he'd be holding his car keys and he forgets about them.
No.
Yeah, and then he finds them and says, oh, I was holding them, and we laugh at it. Like, oh, it's old age. Or he's wearing his glasses and he can't find them, and he asks me to help him to look for them. And we look for the glasses, and he starts getting quite agitated and angry that he can't find the glasses. So the time I told him, Dad, let's go to the mirror. He said, I do not want to go to the mirror. I want my glasses. Give me my glasses. So eventually get to the mirror, and it was right on his face. So he's looking for his glasses, and he's wearing them, but he does not realize that. Another thing was repetitive conversation. You have this conversation, you think you've reached the logical conclusion, but 5 minutes later, you're back to that conversation. Right over and over again. Or, you know, Safaricom sends all these promo messages.
Yeah.
Now for him, someone is trying to get his money out of M-Pesa. So he'd even go around the corner to the M-Pesa shop to tell off those people. Says, why are these people targeting me? Yeah? Or we're watching TV. And he asks, why are these people talking to me? What do they want from me? And wondering, what is going on here? So, well, he was a judge of the High Court of Kenya. And unfortunately, he was retrenched in 2012.
Oh.
And he suffered from depression. So initially, he started being treated for depression. But then you keep noticing all these other things, because it's like his personality changed overnight. He was from a very generous man to a miser, where it would even get to a point he'd take down the number of units we were using in a day. In the morning when he wakes up, goes to where the meter is, writes down what is there, and then when he's going to bed, he'll check again. So in the morning, if there's a change, he'll ask, who was using electricity at night? You know? So so he was seeing a psychiatrist. And so we go there and we tell the psychiatrist, there are also these other things that we've noticed. And my mom, being a retired nurse, had actually started mentioning dementia. So we were then referred to a neurologist, and an MRI was done. And sure enough, it was Alzheimer's disease. Yeah, and it was quite far gone, because his brain had actually already detached from the cortex.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's not easy, because I always say I started mourning my father when he was still alive, because the brain is the only organ in the body whose cells do not regenerate. So as a part of his brain died every day, then a part of him died. So you actually start grieving someone when they're with you, and you're just seeing them wasting away each day.
Wow, that must have been very hard, even for you, for the family. And I can only imagine, like most people, and you've mentioned that sometimes you don't even know, you realize after it's so far gone. So maybe, Elizabeth, maybe you can just let us know. So are there any signs that maybe can show themselves way before it gets, to the really bad part?
So, of course, there are signs and symptoms that you'll pick up. You've heard Karimi talking about repetition. So there's a lot of repetition. So you're walking and they greet you the same way. ask you the same question over and over again. Other times they will struggle with the time and place. They do not know which day it is, what time it is. So they are, like my dad would wake up on a Tuesday, he wants to go to church on a Tuesday because in his mind has told him it is time to go to church. Or he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's telling you they are going home. And the home he's talking about is where he grew up with his parents. So what's happening at this point is that their short-term memory is all wiped out and they're using their long-term memory. So they're telling you things that you almost cannot relate with because it did not happen when you were around them. It's things that happened to them when they were younger. Another thing that you notice is that they start holding on to stuff. So it's either food, money, like what Karemi is talking about, the units that he was checking all the time. So they're holding on to things because also depending on how they grew up, if they grew up when they came, during lack, they will struggle to actually think and they will be in panic that actually I'm losing everything because they can notice there's something happening to them, but they cannot pinpoint and say, this is what is happening to me. So they are struggling with that. So there'll also be that holding. And then wandering away, they will just walk away and not be able to find their way back home. Sometimes they may know the general area where they are staying, but they'll come stand at the gate, but cannot remember. You know how you open your gate, you open the latch? They'll not think about that. So they'll stand there, get frustrated, and walk away. And sometimes, usually, it will take 2-3 days. We're also talking about it. Our parents, Karem is, I think, 4 days, mine disappeared for 3 days. And so now you have to start looking for them. And unfortunately, at the point where they cannot even say what their name is. And so sometimes we've had extreme cases where we've lost loved ones because of those kind of cases. So those are the major symptoms that you would notice.
Right.
But then, of course, there are many others. Different families go through different things depending on what also type of dementia it is. Because others, it could be a stroke, especially if it's vascular dementia. And so there are many other symptoms, but those are the major ones that you would notice.
All right.
Yeah.
And maybe, Karemi, at what point did you feel that you needed to seek help, and how did you even two come to know one another?
So when the diagnosis came, first, at the back of my mind, I was suspicious. I kept thinking, this is Alzheimer's. This is Alzheimer's. But I tell myself, no, this is a white man's disease. Because my first interaction with Alzheimer's actually was from a TV series where there was this old man, ironically, he was also a judge, who wanders off at night. During winter, he's in his pajamas. So his wife is wandering, looking all over for him. And when she finds him, he's really... And he's fighting her off. Then he breaks down when he finally recognizes her and tells her, you know what, I really don't know what's going on in my head. So for me, it was a rich white old man's disease. So my dad was not rich. He's not white, definitely. He was an old man. But no, these Africans don't get Alzheimer's. But each time, because I'd started doing my research, and I was thinking, oh no, this is starting to look like Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So when the diagnosis came, my reaction was to switch off. There's no Alzheimer's. I went into total denial that no, Dad does not have Alzheimer's. These doctors do not know what they're talking about.
Right.
Though at some point, I'd be like, okay, time to put on the big girl pants and now start figuring what is what.
Yeah.
So go back to Mr. Google and I check for support groups in Kenya. And I come across the Alzheimer's and Dementia Organization of Kenya. And I gave my mom the contact. And for me, after that, it does not exist. It took me about a year to finally come to terms with the fact that Dad had Alzheimer's. In as much as at some point when we went for family counseling, and I asked the doctor, so how long does he have? And he said, no, I'm not God. There are those who live for 17, 20 years. I told him, no. Let's be real.
Yeah.
At this stage, and in your experience, how long do we have with Dad? And he said, okay, let me just be honest with you. The stage is at, it's going to be 4 to 5 years, because it was already quite progressed. And we actually had 3 years with Dad.
Oh. Wow. That's really terrible when you think about it, and even looking at the fact that the statistics, you just cannot be sure.
Exactly.
Because it's different, as you had mentioned, with everyone. And I think now that you've mentioned it, I would love to hear more about the organization and what it's about, what prompted you to even, put it up.
So like I said, for me, it was the journey that I walked with Dad. My dad we noticed the changes. When we were talking earlier, I was telling you, usually with this disease, we can't say we know exactly when it started.
Yeah.
Because it could have started either 10 years ago or 20 even years ago. And so for Dad, I think it must have started around 10 years ago, because that's when he was also retrenched. My dad was a policeman, and he went into a diabetic coma. And because of that, they couldn't keep him in the police anymore. So he had to go home. And then at the same time, we lost our sister to cancer. And so that is now when we started noticing Dad is deteriorating, but we were not understanding what it is. Like Karemi said, when you read about Alzheimer's, it's not in Africa. It's not an African disease. It's the same thing that we're being told about COVID at some point.
Yeah.
So all of us, we knew, even when you're telling everybody, people are looking at you strange because what are you talking about? And then there's that also misconception that it is an old man's disease.
Exactly.
So as somebody is aging, we expect that to happen. Yet it is just a myth. That is not true. We know people who are older, who have lived a normal life. Even in their 90s, they're still remembering the current information that's happening. And so for me, I got very frustrated. And like Karemi, I actually went in to look for a support group, but there was none. So I was that time doing my counseling psychology at Amani. I was doing my diploma. And we were asked to write a special issues paper, and discuss an issue that we don't think our classmates know about, that we can talk about. So I decided to talk about dementia and Alzheimer's. And so many of the questions that everybody was asking me, what is the prevalence? What are the numbers? How many people actually have this disease? And I would keep saying, I'm sorry, but there are no numbers. No, from what I have read, what I have searched, we don't have numbers. And so now that prompted us to now start a support group with other caregivers.
Right.
So we started in 2007, but my dad rested in 2009. By the time he was resting, I was so tired mentally because I had gone through a journey. Like I said, my dad got sick when I was 17. And so I had to go look for work, educate my siblings. My sister was going to Form 1. My dad is like, girls don't go to school, stay at home. And we thought it was a joke. So week 1, week 2, we're like, hey, this guy, for sure, he's not taking her to school. So I had to go look for work at 17, take them to school, educate them. And so I became a breadwinner because now there was no one else to run and do some of these things. And he would get so angry with me. He would keep telling me I'm usurping authority over him. The number of beatings I got were quite a number. Oh. And other times he would go to the bank to withdraw money. He forgets he's withdrawn. And he's coming in and he's hidden it, like holding, what I was talking about holding. So they have this thing with tissue. So he would put all his money tied up in small tissues. And he's forgotten where he's put it, but he would wake you up in the middle of the night. I can't bring up thanks. So all these things are the ones that made me start realizing, you know what? This information needs to get out there for people to understand. And so when Dad rested in 2009, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And I actually packed the organization, went back to corporate, and continued living. I was like, I've done my bit. That is it. Yeah. So in 2013, I got a call from 3 different caregivers, and they're like, you know what? My sister has, my father has, my husband has. And I'm thinking, God, I remember exactly where I was driving. I was going down Bagathi. And I remember at that point, I actually almost stopped the car and looked up, and I was like, God, I thought we had an agreement. I'm not going to do this anymore. Because I'm still, like we're asking even each other with Karemi, do you ever heal? Because I struggled so much with Dad to a point even by the time he was dying, I had to go and ask for forgiveness because I was so angry with him. Because how could he forget me on my wedding day? He's telling me I'm not your father. So I still had a lot of pain in me. Yeah. And even that is even why I went to do counseling in the first place, to learn also as I heal. And so I was like, no, God, I'm not going to do this. So at some point, I told God, I told these ladies who called me, you know what? Okay, you come. We shall have a meeting. Yeah. If it works, well and good. If it doesn't work, forget about it. We just pack our bags and say, it's been real. We go our different ways. Yeah. And let me tell you, it never stopped. From 2013, it ran until 2020 when COVID struck. Yeah. So that is one of the reasons, actually. For me, it was more to empower the caregiver, so that the caregiver feels that they're not walking alone. Because sometimes you're thinking you're the only one. And because we don't talk about it due to stigma, we hide. And we are dying inside. I've seen cases of caregivers actually resting before their loved ones. And so for me, my burden is the caregiver. So that's what we do, support caregivers through counseling, through information giving, through awareness in the counties. People call us to their homes. Like Karemi, we've been to Karemi's home in Embu. We go create awareness to the villagers so that they understand what it is. And everywhere people call us, they're like, come, we're going to organize for people to come. Because people out there are suffering, but they do not know what they are dealing with. So that is one of the things we do. We are at the moment working with the Ministry of Health to try and get a dementia plan in Kenya, which is a requirement by WHO to have a dementia plan in Kenya so that it can cater. Because with the insurance that we have, it doesn't cater for dementia. And so a lot of families, it is very costly to have a loved one with dementia because you're paying for diapers, you're paying for medic. And they not only have dementia, they have other conditions, pre-existing conditions. They have diabetes, they have all these other. So it gets very costly for the family, even having a caregiver. So some of these things, just to empower the caregiver, what do? We train the caregivers so that they know how to communicate with their loved ones. So we try and do what we can. A lot of times it's not like we even have funding. We do it from our own pockets, but we try and make a change. Remember what Wangari Maathai said, you just be that bird, the hummingbird that makes the little change. So that's what we are trying to do.
Okay. And I pray that God keeps providing because what you're doing is needed, very much needed. And since we are talking about caregiving, maybe Karimi, you can let us know, what did caregiving, to dad look like? How was it, physical, mental well-being? How was that?
As I told you, I ignored it. So I kept away. But for the few times I was there, like, or even maybe I was working in Nairobi and my parents are in Embu. So whenever I'd go home and my mom would tell me, thank God you're here. I'm exhausted. Let me just go sleep. Yeah, because there was a way my dad and I would communicate and he'd listen to me. Because I don't know what happens. Some people will try to deal with them and they'll even be hit. But then there's that one person who will calm him down. So mom would go sleep. I'd make sure he's eaten. We sit, we talk and talk. And for me, it was more of, I'm going to talk to dad, like he's still here, all of him. Yeah, so we'll have conversations, we'll watch TV, we'll laugh. And at some point, his speech had started deteriorating. I honestly couldn't understand half of what he was saying, but we were communicating. And then I'd make sure he goes to bed. Sometimes he'd be very stubborn about his food and his medicine, but I'd get him to eat and take his medicine. And to be honest, I just kept looking at dad. And I'm thinking, this is not my dad. Dad is Superman. He's intelligent, he's got a great sense of humor. Who is this person who's worn his suit inside out? And you can't tell him because his cognition, his cognitive skills are not where they used to be. Yeah? And it was a lot of hard work. I ended up shutting people out. And I remember a time I was at work and I was on set, I was shooting. And the night before I went to work, I had all my lines. When I got on set, I did not have a single line. And it was like I had never touched the script, ever. And I couldn't understand what was going on. Then, because I'd been posting a lot about Alzheimer's on Facebook, a friend who is a geriatric nurse in the States then told me, watch out about caregiver stress syndrome. And I checked the symptoms and I realized this is what it is. Yeah. But I personally just I retreated into a shell and I stayed away from people. That was one of my ways of coping. So sometimes it would look like I'm not bothered by what is going on at home, but that was my coping mechanism.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And maybe now when we think about it, I'm sure people who are watching and maybe have had to deal with relatives who have had dementia. So what are some of the practical ways of supporting and giving them the care that they need? Since again, we understand that it's not curable, but then there are those coping mechanisms. There's a way we can support them into making sure they live longer or they're happier, you know, in the period of time, you know, they're able to live. So maybe what can you say about that?
So one of the things actually we tell people is please don't move them from their environment, the environment they are used to. So if, for example, they are living in Embu, and like we were talking earlier when Karemi was explaining to us that when Dad was moved to Embu, he deteriorated because he was used to living in Nairobi.
Yeah.
So if they have been living in Nairobi, let them stay in Nairobi. There's one thing that we have come to realize, even as I'm also training in dementia, one of the things is that the air in Nairobi and the air in Embu is very different. And because we are normal, we don't even realize some of these things.
Yeah.
But for them, it affects them. And then also, there's a way they are used to running their day. And so moving them from a familiar environment, you're actually making them deteriorate even faster. So if you can, as a family members, you go to them, but not them coming to you. And that also includes getting into their world. If they want to talk about the 1960s, you are not there. It might not make sense. They might ask you a question like 52 times. Please answer. Because for them, that is what is giving them the stability that they require. So it is you to change your way of thinking and just go into their world and be with them, which is very hard usually, but you have to keep training. Another thing that we tell people is don't treat them like children. Because a lot of times we think we are helping them, but actually we are making them feel very, you're making them feeling, this feeling that you're demeaning them. So I remember once my dad, like I said, he would wake up on a Tuesday. So I got the calendar and I thought I was being helpful. So I marked and I told him, Dad, today is Tuesday. So we have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm actually breaking it down for him. See, I'm trying to be this good girl who's helping the father. So when I got to Sunday and I told him, so this is where we shall go to church.
Yes.
He just looked at me. My father had never acknowledged, that time my son was 2 years old, he had never acknowledged that I have a child. He didn't even, like I said, he didn't even remember me on my wedding day, so did he even know I have a child? I didn't think so. He looked at me and asked me, do I look like your 2-year-old? Out of the blues. So sometimes they can have lucid times, and you're thinking you can say anything to them, and at that point they'll tell you something that will be so hurtful because they've been hearing everything you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's why even we tell people, don't discuss them in their presence. Even if they're seeing a doctor with you, have the conversation with the doctor away from their presence. Because a lot of times, because they know what people say about them, and we've had experiences, when people who irritate them walk in, they'll close their eyes.
Yes.
And pretend that they are not hearing what you're saying. And then when you walk out, they will ask, have they gone?
Yes.
That tells you they knew.
Yeah.
So even with dementia, the last thing that they actually lose is their hearing. So you have to be so careful. What do you say about them? Nowadays, they just sleep here. They don't do nothing. They keep poo-pooing on themselves. Their hearing.
Yep.
You in your normal self, who would want to be in such a state? You wouldn't want that. So don't speak about them in their presence. Respect them. They were respectable people in the society.
Yes.
And half of them, by the way, did very well for our society. So why can't we give them the dignity that they require? So we need to watch ourselves. We may be frustrated. If you feel like screaming, I remember there's a family that came to me and told me Dad was screaming at me and he's so angry with me. And so he walked out just for 2 minutes and he came back and said, oh, hi, Dad, how are you? There's this boy who was here. He's the same boy. So, I mean, just walk away. You go scream outside there if you have to yell. But please come back and show him, you know what, you're the person who matters. So it is us to change our way. And I feel for caregivers, because when the disease is starting, it can be very daunting. I mean, you sit down and you're thinking, oh, what is this? Where do I start?
Yes.
And you're feeling, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But sometimes also remember, there's also a lot of pressure for the person living with dementia. So also remember, as you're taking care of you, we need to take care of him also, or her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the fruit of love, like just that love that God talks about in the Bible.
In fact, like, thank you for bringing that up, because there's a family I went to visit, and after I taught them and I told them, oh, you know, actually at the moment there's no cure for dementia. One of the gentlemen who was there told me, I think, Mwalimu, you're wrong. And I looked at him and I said, okay, please let me know, where am I wrong? He said, I think there's a cure. And I'm like, okay. And they said, there is love. Love is the
Wow.
cure that you give. And so, yes, there's a cure. It's love. And when you love unconditionally.
Yes.
Today they can be nice. Tomorrow they can be slapping you as they are calling you names. You still love them.
All right.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Love is the cure.
It is the cure.
I think God knew when He said we need to love.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
But anyway, we have so much to talk about, but we're going to be just taking a really short break. But when we get back, we'll just get deeper into the conversation and also pick on some questions from you guys. So stay tuned. This is Health Check.
In order to keep hope alive in the airwaves, Hope Media has a couple of initiatives. Friends of Hope. Friends of Hope is you and I forming a team of well-wishers and volunteers who give in cash and kind to support in spreading the gospel at Hope Media. Currently, Hope Media is running a campaign under Friends of Hope dubbed 100 for 1. Through the campaign, Hope Media is asking Hope FM and Hope TV listeners and viewers to give just 100 shillings in order to reach one more soul with the message of hope and the gospel. Engage with us on our social media platforms at Hope FM Live and at Hope TV Kenya. Kuwa rafiki mso leo. Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
Going back to the heart of worship.
Whether up the mountain or down the valley, we were created to worship God.
Enjoy carefully selected worship music every Wednesday all day long.
Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Miracles happen when you move. We take it a notch higher with more worship music.
Every Wednesday,
Is Worship Wednesday.
only on Hope FM. Listen and live.
Welcome back. We're just having this chit chat here, and there's actually an issue that we really want to address now that we are back. But you're watching Health Check, and with me here is Karimi and also Elizabeth, two wonderful women who are passionate about raising awareness on dementia. And of course, we've been getting into this conversation. We've looked at a really bigger chunk of the story, but now we will get to the more nitty-gritties. And of course, you can send in your questions so that we can address them as well. So, karibuni tena.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you were saying something.
I'm always saying something.
Yeah. I mean, you're an actress, so, and a farmer, mushrooms.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, you were saying something about what you should not tell a caregiver.
Yeah, the things. So, because, very many people do not understand
Right.
what dementia is. And they also don't understand the pressure that caregivers go through, especially the immediate family. So the times like when my dad would wander off, people would come, why don't you do this? Why don't you try stopping him? You have no idea what this family is going through, what they have done to keep this person safe also.
Yeah.
So really, instead of shouting at these people, why don't you take your time to go spend time with them? In fact, tell these caregivers, I'm actually coming. You take some time off.
Yeah.
I'll take care of your loved one for you. Then you will learn
Yes.
why some things cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
And so other people who are also very guilty of that are police officers. How many times do we see people wandering off? They do not know their names, where they're coming from, and then they're taken to the police station for help.
Yeah.
But the police, "Wewe mzee wacha," and this person is so disoriented, they do not know. Our police officers also need to be trained in how to deal with people with dementia.
That's true.
Another thing, do not compare situations. I'll give you an example that happened to me. And this was a friend of mine,
Yeah.
a medical doctor no less, who lost a parent to cancer.
Right.
And I'm told, hey, I'd rather cancer than Alzheimer's any day. Let me tell you, I felt confused because I was wondering, are there Olympics for diseases?
I know.
So Alzheimer's has gotten the bronze medal in this race. And what, cancer has the gold? What is this? Empathize.
Yeah.
Yeah? And just be there for people, especially when it's helping. Don't judge.
Yeah.
Yeah? Don't go running your mouth saying, hey, oh, there's another thing. That person is not sick, it is witchcraft.
Oh, the myths
Yes.
and misconceptions.
Yes. You know, and you're thinking, seriously, that these things actually happen. It's a disease. Now, learn. Go to this family. Do your research. Find out. Because if it's a family member, then you don't even know if they're also at risk.
That's true.
Yeah?
That's true.
There's just some things that you shouldn't say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as caregivers, I mean, they need, I don't know, they need care themselves.
Exactly.
And they need to be treated, with so much care as well, because they are going through so much.
That's true.
And, you even mentioned that sometimes even the caregiver can end up, passing.
We've had instances where they
gets
have.
to that
it gets
level.
that. Because you see, it's a very lonely journey.
It
It's
is.
very lonely, and a lot of times, and I know Karimi can also bear me witness, people stop coming to visit
Yes.
at some point. And so you're struggling alone as a family. And a lot of people, even maybe now you're being pointed at that
Yeah.
family where,
Yes.
know. And a lot of people, like she said, people don't take time to understand.
Yeah.
And we don't blame them. It's just the stigma that's associated with this condition that
Yeah.
it's actually a scary condition, and you're thinking, maybe when we hang around them, we could also get it. So a lot of people just stay away from you. And unfortunately, even church, we need to also sensitize the church. As much as you're sensitizing the police, sensitize the church.
Yes.
Because also sometimes with church, also one of the things I've noticed, these are people who were your elders in church, who served in the church. Then now they are no longer coming to church. Why aren't we going to look for them and find out why are they no longer coming to church? We have just left them. Nobody even understands. And then one day, so now maybe an announcement is, oh yeah, by the way, there used to be that. Surely, why do we need to get there? But I know most churches are now starting to have these golden ages kind of groups.
Yeah.
But also once people have started getting dementia, it's a very lonely journey.
Yeah.
So we just need to hold each other's hand and know, you know what, I'm not alone. So if not, now let's say Karimi needs to go and do her hair. I tell her, I'm coming to sit with your mother. You go do your hair. Go take a breather. And let me tell you, you give better care
Yes.
when you have taken a breather. Because if you don't, you end up having caregiver burnout.
Yes.
So you become rude to your loved one without noticing that you're actually being rude. You're nasty to them, not wanting to, but it's the pressures of caregiving that are making you become that. So just some of these are small things that would make a big difference to a
Yes.
caregiver.
That's true.
Yeah.
And maybe while you're on that, you can also let us know what are some of the concerns that caregivers present even with the organization.
Oh, half of them are just, even today, one of the things we learned is, it's called haba disease. Wanaume, they have pains everywhere, and they can't actually tell you, this is where I am sick. And even if they go to do tests, by the way, there's nothing coming out of the tests. But it's the pressure of that. So that is a lot of one of the things that they go through. Of course, the grief, they're already grieving. They're wondering, have I done my best? So you're oscillating between acceptance. Today you're bargaining with God. Oh God, if only you can heal my loved one. Then tomorrow you're angry. But even you, God, why did you take me through this journey? And you're fighting everyone and everything around you because you're going through grief as a caregiver. A lot of them come in and they're like, this man is just pretending. Or this woman is just pretending. Yesterday we had this conversation, we agreed. We are going to sell land to get this money to do 1, 2, 3. When I sold the land, he went and told people that I am eating his money. And obvious scenario that happens all the time. They eat and they forget they ate.
Yes.
So they go telling people, in this house,
I'm not eating
nobody gives me food.
Yeah.
I stay hungry the whole day.
Yes.
Now, so people are coming to you. By the time they are coming to you, they are so angry. They're like, you know, this man, by the way, me up on Imefika, I'm going to leave him. I'm going to, and there are people who have locked them up and gone,
Yes.
because you're tired, because they have abused you. You're done and you're taking them to the shower. They can't remember to shower. They are beating you in the shower as you're giving them this. But now, surely, even you're a normal human being with a threshold.
Yeah.
You can take until this much. Now it's just too much. So a lot of them, by the time they are coming to you and you're telling them, you know what, by the way, my dear, it will get harder.
Yes.
People want to beat you up in the support group meeting. They're thinking you're not being nice. How can you tell me it's going to be? It's already worse. It is the worst I have ever gone through. But also you're preparing you, because as the condition progresses, at this point, maybe he's beating you. Maybe enjoy that, because they are still talking. Because maybe a few months from now, they'll no longer be talking. Or they'll no longer be walking. Or they'll no longer be able to eat by themselves. And so maybe they'll have a peg fitted so that they're able to eat. So it's very hard to bring that balance where you're enjoying the moment. And it's hard to enjoy that moment. But we try to tell them every day, because if that stage passes, there's a decline. And they go to another stage that maybe you will never ever be able even to have that conversation that you would have longed for, that used to irritate you. So I think it's the caregiver, usually it's a very sad place where they are in. And if actually, you see this person who's got dementia, they're in their safe world. You provided you feed them, clothe them, make sure that they don't have bed sores, and they are clean, and imagine they're in their world and they are peaceful. It's you as the caregiver who's noticing the decline. This person, like Karemi was talking about her dad was a superhero. And so that's the same thing. My dad was the one. I mean, he used to tell me stories of, I can be anything I wanted to be in this world. And he would give me that confidence. Now he's the one who you can't even speak to him. So it can really have an effect on you as a caregiver.
And another issue that you'll also come across is legal issues. So like, we were having this conversation earlier about advanced planning. From the time the diagnosis is made, then what? There are finances to be taken care of. There's property to be taken care of. So this is now when wills need to be written. Or you do a living will. Things like power of attorney. Who is going to get the power of attorney? Someone that your loved one trusts. Who will actually take care of them? Because you're looking at things like banks, property. And you've seen unscrupulous people who decide not to use that power of attorney to go against the wishes of their loved one. Then just find families fighting. And also there's a issue, like we've seen cases where you find someone has got dementia and probably they were divorced and remarried, or the first spouse died, they're widowed or they're widowed. And then their children cannot even access the parents. So guardianship has to come in. And sometimes you cannot enforce the guardianship because primarily it's a spouse who should be taking care. And that's where the first guardianship goes. But sometimes the court will give it to the children. Now enforcing it. So we really need legal framework, a legal framework in this country. One, to take care of the elderly. And especially people with dementia, and I mean dementia generally.
All right. And maybe we can talk about the stigma that comes with dementia. How do we manage that, especially even for the one who has dementia and even for the caregivers? How do we go about it?
I think the only way to deal with stigma is start talking. Because a lot of times stigma is because it is a harsh condition and nobody wants to talk about it. But once you start talking about it, that is when actually we got more people saying, whatever you have said, 1, 2, 3 out of the 5, I think my loved one has it. But if I had kept quiet and never talked about it, they would never have understood what it is. So I think it is time actually to stop keeping quiet. If you notice something with your loved one, talk about it. Of course, it's ensuring that you dignify, it's in a dignified way. But let's talk about it, because stigma is because people, in fact, the other day somebody was asking what are the numbers in Kenya. And we couldn't actually, we were even doing a study and we were debating whether to get the numbers in Kenya or deal with an anti-stigma toolkit. And we realized it was on a project called Stride. And we realized that even if we had the numbers in Kenya, when people are not speaking about it, we will not actually actualize it.
Yeah.
So we decided, you know what, let's work on an anti-stigma toolkit. Let's understand, why don't people want to talk about it?
Yeah.
What is it about it that we just want to hide our loved ones and not open it up? And even doctors will tell you in their class, it is something that it is a subject that goes like 30 minutes, never taken time, as usual. No one has never seen a case in Kenya. And it's because even us who have loved ones with dementia, when we go to hospital, we're talking about all the other pre-existing conditions other than dementia.
Ooh.
So even we as caregivers, we need to start empowering ourselves because we are also the ones empowering that seed of stigma because we are hiding under everything else. But unfortunately, you know, when you keep hiding things under a carpet, one day it will blow up and things will come out and they'll not be too juicy, they'll be ugly. So let's just start talking about it. I think for me, I think that is really what happens. And I think because of us starting to talk about it, the ministry has taken it up. You're seeing more concern. Now there's more, you know, you're put in a technical working group to deal with issues of dementia. But if we had kept quiet, they would never even have known we existed.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, and
so
I mean, you're looking at a situation where in the next 30 years,
Yes.
60% of Kenya's population
Yeah.
will comprise the elderly because we are growing older by the day.
Yeah.
And so the pyramid is turning. So we'll have the base, the youth will be at the top and the elderly will be at the bottom. So we really need to start planning because we're planning for ourselves actually. As we get there, then what?
Yeah, and it's so funny because even as we are having this conversation, it's what just made me realize that my late grandmother, you know, towards the end of her journey, she actually developed signs of dementia because she struggled with diabetes, high blood pressure. But then all we could be told is anasahau vitu, hakumbuki, but no one mentioned. That was like, I'm just realizing it right now. So the awareness.
You see also, we were actually asking, how many geriatric doctors do we have in Kenya? I think I only know of 2. Yeah, one is practicing, the other one is in policy. So also when you also take your loved one to see another doctor, maybe it's the person who's always treated them for high blood pressure, they'll just be put on the high blood pressure medicine. They'll always be on the diabetes medicine. And one thing with Alzheimer's, it is also known as type 3 diabetes. And why it is also hard to diagnose some of these diseases is because they mimic very many others.
Right.
Yeah? So we also need to get to a point where when you take your loved one for a wellness check, it is from the brain to the toe.
Yes.
A full check. And it's about time that our health insurers really started thinking about this, because in 30 years' time, we'll be the ones that 60% of the population will be the elderly.
Yes.
So what happens?
Yeah.
And now, of course, even the numbers are changing. You know, earlier people would ask you, what is the age of people who get dementia? I would say 65 years and above. That's no longer the story. We're getting younger people from even 40 and even earlier than 40 getting dementia. So that is why she says we need to start changing this narrative.
That's
because
true.
because you don't ask for it, it sneaks up on you. So have the systems ready, have everything working. Take care of yourself. Whatever you need to do, do it now. Because we assume, oh, I'm still young, I still have a long way to go. Like we said, 20 years ago, it could have started, and maybe you're in your 20s then, you could have made the changes that were required then to start. So that when you're in your 40, you're able to continue living a good life.
Yes.
But because we didn't do anything in our 20s, we were still enjoying life in our 20s. So maybe eating the wrong diet, taking whatever we are taking, for example, if you're young and it's life. But some of these things we need to start changing this narrative. It's not it's not life as it was before.
That's
Things are
true.
changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even you mentioning like how we're going to have more older people. You know, back then we were just
Yes.
mentioning that kitambo watu wangezaliwa wengi.
Yes.
My dad's family has like 10 children. My mom's like 8 or 9. And us, we're just 3 of us.
Yeah.
And you asked a very important question. Who's going to take care of us?
Exactly.
Yeah, and maybe we can touch on that. What do we need to do even as we anticipate for the future that we can run away from? What are some of these things we need to really put across?
Well, I've kind of mentioned advanced planning. Some of it is also, what is your plan for retirement? Where are you going?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to continue living in your house with whom? The people who are now coming up with retirement villages. That's an alternative where you're all the same age with the caregivers and everything. Because seriously, do you think our children will take care of us?
Oof. The troubles are many.
Yeah.
They are dealing with their own
It's,
problems.
and then, I mean, society has changed so much.
Yeah.
And Kenya, we're now getting to the Western world where even the elderly are just being dumped in homes. Yeah? So we need to start planning
As soon
in
as
advance.
possible, yeah.
What is your plan?
And that fear that we have of even writing a will.
Write
A lot
write
of
your
people
will.
say we will write your will, you'll start dying.
Yes.
But what if it happens and you're at a point where you actually can't write this will anymore?
It's true.
I think we need to start having that conversation and thinking, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
In preparation, we need to
Of
prepare.
any eventuality that
That's
comes your way.
true.
Of course, we believe we shall be well, but in
Yeah.
case things do not go the way we had
Yes.
anticipated,
Yes.
there's something.
That's true. Yeah. So maybe as our parting shot, maybe you can just say a word. Just encourage someone who's probably dealing with dementia in particular, and even for the caregiver. What would you say to them from the cases, you know, you've had to deal with in your organization?
I think my parting shot is that there's a cure, and the cure is love, like we had said earlier.
Yeah.
And number 2, please do not suffer alone. There are people out there who can hold your hand and walk with you. Sometimes it can be very lonely, but you don't have to suffer alone. There are people who can hold your hand and support you.
Yeah.
And once you know you're not alone, I think it gives you a bounce in your walk. I can tell you because I know her. She actually hibernated for a
yes,
long
I did.
time.
I-
And I had to keep looking for her wherever. I kept unearthing her.
Yeah, I just went underground.
She went underground. So sometimes, and that also we allow, but also you have to watch because sometimes also, because of it being a very lonely journey, they can just go underground completely. So also it's our work to just keep checking on them.
Yes.
So don't suffer alone. There are people who can hold your hand and enjoy the moments. Yes, they may be difficult, but enjoy, because unfortunately when that stage passes, you're moving to another stage where they might move into another level of a different, totally different stage that you might be wondering, I wish they could still speak. I wish they could just keep wandering away and walking here where I can see them, because now they are maybe just seated on a wheelchair and they can't move. So enjoy those moments, albeit difficult, but try and enjoy them.
Wow, that's beautiful. And maybe Karemi, I think there are caregivers who are watching us today, and some of them have reached their last nerve, probably. But what would you say to just encourage them?
I'd say reach out to the Alzheimer's and Dementia Organization of Kenya because, you know, when I thought now I've just reached the end,
Yeah.
but Elizabeth will look for me. I do not know what she just come. How are you? And we talk even like for an hour or two.
Yeah.
And you end up feeling okay. I'd say take care of yourself. You cannot care for your loved one when you're not well. And that is mental, physical, spiritual.
Yeah.
If you need to take time off, say, I need to take time off. Call someone and just say, honestly, I need to take time off or I'm going to lose it. And you can't afford to lose it. Then what happens to your loved one? So just reach out, talk, join the support group. It's really, really important.
Yeah. And you know, now I'm just looking back, and I'm so glad we've had this conversation, because I think there's a movie I watched that, you know, it was, you know, just featuring a lady who went into dementia, and now the husband has to take care of her, and it was really frustrating for the family. But in the end, it was so beautiful. I cried. Yeah, I did cry. I cried so much because the guy went and read the vows against the wife.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, like he just repeated what he said on that wedding day. And it was so beautiful because days after the lady passes on, but then she died knowing that my husband loves me. So I think what you said about love is everything. I think that is where the fruit of love is tested the most.
I know.
Yes.
When you have to give care to
In
someone.
fact, one of the things is interesting that I'll say this very quickly. When Dad was just
Yes.
about to rest also, we ended up having a service for him, and we did, but then he had 2 strokes or 3. So he was on a wheelchair and was just slumped in the wheelchair. And we did a Kamba song because, of course, like we said, their short-term memory all wiped out. So they start talking their mother tongue. And so we did a song in Kamba.
Yeah.
And when we started the song, my dad sat up.
Oh.
And he had been slumped on this wheelchair for so long.
Yeah.
He sat up and he was moving his hand. And as the song progressed, because you knew what stanza was coming next,
Yes.
he kept slumping. And by the time he rested, I think after 2 or 3 days after that. But for us, we felt we had done something for him. And I remember also going to ICU to just tell him, Dad, forgive me, because I was very angry with him initially because I felt he really mistreated me. But now to understand later, he was also really suffering. And I just told him, Dad, I'm sorry. I've just come to say sorry, forgive me and everything. And all he did was just squeeze my hand. So for me, that was the message. So some of these things, those small things, are the ones that are so beautiful. Enjoy those moments. Even that just squeeze, that just hug, just holding on to them.
Yes.
It's the most amazing thing.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, this conversation it felt like a movie, literally. Because I mean, the awareness is so low that I'm even listening to this and I'm like, wow, this actually is in our country and it's happening, and we need to raise more awareness for sure. So I think, what can we do maybe as we wind up? What can we do to make sure we're raising awareness? Maybe both of you can say a word as we conclude.
I think keep talking. Like I've said,
Yes.
to anybody you meet,
Yes.
educate them on dementia. Let them understand about dementia.
Right.
The symptoms. What can you do? How do you take care of yourself? What are the the risk factors of dementia? Some of these things. If you're in church, ask them if they have a health day, for example. Can you speak about it? So it is up to you to now start making the changes in the community where you are, so that people around you understand what it is.
Yes.
So for me, I still repeat, talk. It's about talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe Karimi, and of course you mentioned that helps with the healing process.
Yes,
as
it
well.
also does.
Yeah.
Talking is quite cathartic as well. So let's keep talking. Let's change this narrative.
Yes, so that it's not just something we see on movies and
Exactly.
YouTube videos and
Yes.
white people.
And not understanding why this person is being so difficult.
Yes.
No. And can we stop locking our people in the houses because we don't know what is going on with them?
That's true.
Yeah.
They need love.
They
A lot
really
of love
need love.
and patience.
Yeah.
That's true. Wow, thank you so much. I mean, I've had a wholesome conversation. I loved this conversation. And I know everyone watching at home has definitely enjoyed it. And I think you can maybe share just the name of the organization once again and where people can find in case they need.
So it's Alzheimer's and Dementia Organization Kenya. You can check our website, www.alzkenya.org. All our details are there. You can get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So don't suffer. You just reach out and you'll get the help that you need. I think my biggest takeaway of the day today has been love. It is where it's most perfected. And it's all about loving people who are not even lovable. Because at that point, at that moment, you don't even know how to give that love when you keep getting beat up, when you keep getting, all those abuses and insults even sometimes. So I think love is something that is perfected when we are faced with the responsibility of being a caregiver to someone dealing with dementia. So I do hope each and everyone at home has gotten a thing or two on what to do in case this comes up. And we need to be on the lookout. But most importantly, let us lead with love. Thank you so much for watching Health Check tonight. My name is Beatrice Watare. Do have a good night.